Welcome to the influence of landscape factors on transportation systems in Volga. This presentation explores the relationship between the landscape and built systems in your community. Specifically, we will examine the development of transportation systems and community land use over time, how surface water and topography affect where communities and transportation systems develop, the impact of groundwater on transportation and land use, benefits of trees and other vegetation, and how trees in towns fit with transportation networks, main streets, and neighborhoods. Volga is a small rural community in northeast Iowa, situated along the Volga River in Clayton County. It was platted in 1852 on the southwestern edge of the Driftless Area, which is characterized by its topography of steep hillsides and narrow valleys. Volga is in a valley and one of 9 communities along the 109-mile River Bluffs Scenic Byway. In May 1999, the town experienced severe flooding that devastated many homes and businesses and resulted in a loss of population. Today, Volga has 203 people, which demonstrates its resiliency following the flooding as it continues to improve the quality of life for residents and visitors. For example, Volga now has a public library and upgrades to the downtown streetscape. The vast green space created by the floods now facilitates a park-like bridge between the scenic river corridor and Volga's charming historic downtown. The historical landscape of Iowa was dominated by prairie and savannas. Tree canopy was typically found in valleys along river corridors adjacent to scattered savannas because the fires that maintained the prairies could not spread as easily in those places. Native plants such as switchgrass, little bloom stem, coneflower, and milkweed are some of the more recognizable plants found in the diverse prairie landscape. The once dominant prairie has been replaced by agricultural fields, pasture lands, and small towns in the post-settlement Iowa landscape. Fire suppression and development have allowed for a greater growth of wooded acres among the rural landscape and in town. At the same time, many wooded river corridors have narrowed to make more room for cropland. The land cover in most of Iowa's small towns today is a mix of residential lawns or neighborhood spaces dotted by trees. Streets and parking are paved and are sometimes flanked by sidewalks. Commercial and industrial zones are typically dominated by impervious surfaces. Volga's land cover is dominated by grassland and tree canopy, but many trees along the central waterfront have been lost to flooding. The lush vegetation along the Volga River is seen on the edges of town that extend beyond town limits with a shift into large areas of agricultural land. Impervious surfaces limit or prevent stormwater from infiltrating the ground, and in expansive areas can create heat island effects through stored and reflected heat. Agricultural land that is in annual crops and tilled provides limited infiltration, which can contribute to local flooding. Lawns can also limit infiltration, especially over compacted soil. All of these factors contribute to stormwater runoff and localized flooding, especially during intense rainfall. The depth to the water table refers to the distance from the surface that groundwater fully saturates soil. In places with a high water table, 0 or only a few feet below the surface, groundwater can well up and cause localized flooding. Rivers and natural lakes are generally areas where the water table is above the ground. These rivers and lakes receive most of their water from groundwater, with some surface water runoff from rain or snowmelt. This is why rivers can still be seen even if it hasn't rained in a while. High water tables can have effects beyond just surface pooling, such as in the case of frost boils. Frost boils result from groundwater freezing during winter and forming bubbles of ice called ice lenses. that expand and push up from the ground. When the ice thaws, the frost boils collapse, leaving a divot in the surface. With certain kinds of flexible pavement, such as asphalt or gravel, these frost boils form potholes. High groundwater tables can also have detrimental effects on one's home. Houses with basements surrounded by a high water table develop cracks or damaged walls due to water pressure. Typically, a tile drain mitigates some of these effects, but wet foundations can require dewatering, which can be expensive. Developing landscapes with high water tables requires more expensive maintenance, construction, and paving. Creating public spaces or parks in these areas makes good sense. For example, in Emmitsburg, the high water table has caused repeated damage on streets and parking lots. The highway shows signs of continual repairs. Looking at your town map, are there areas where the high water table and impervious surfaces overlap? Next time you're in that part of town, note local pavement conditions. Do you see signs of cracks or buckling? Has the surface been patched multiple times? The high water table along Dominer Road into town could damage the waterway because of the likelihood of frost boils. Park space along the river creates a buffer that allows for infiltration before reaching developed areas. Grasslands and tree canopy. Native grasslands with deep-rooted plants aid in infiltrating stormwater, while dense foliage slows and filters stormwater from other areas. Practices such as bioswales and natural roadsides capitalize on these benefits to improve water quality. Trees offer many advantages. They clean the air, create shade, and cool the atmosphere. They intercept rainfall, which helps mitigate stormwater runoff and flooding. They consume groundwater, which lowers the water table and makes space for water storage below ground. Carefully chosen and placed trees create community identity and make spaces comfortable for residents. Grasslands and trees provide habitat for pollinators and birds, which provides enjoyment for residents. Here's an example of a downtown streetscape with minimal vegetation and another with trees and planters. And a residential street, lack of street trees creates an uncomfortable space that feels unwelcoming and exposed to the elements. Street trees, shrubs, and planters along a roadway offer shade and protection from the elements, while also enhancing the experience of the street. Looking at the heart of your community, does your downtown core have trees? How does this change as you move from the downtown into residential areas of town? Reflecting on your own experiences, where do you feel most comfortable on a hot summer day? How do you think visitors see the space? Volga's downtown core is dominated by grass that surrounds the impervious surfaces. The vast grassland space and tree canopy creates an attractive landscape throughout and around town. The next time you're out in town, note what it feels like to be in areas where there are more trees and vegetated areas. How does it feel to be in areas mostly dominated by impervious surfaces with minimal vegetation? Do you notice a difference in how many people pause or gather in those spaces? A watershed is an area defined by elevated boundaries that separate water flowing towards different rivers and creeks. These basins show the extent of a drainage area flowing to a single outlet point. Where a community is located within its watershed determines how much water flows into or through it. Location also influences the town's capacity to manage flooding issues. For example, a community located near the end of a watershed, close to the outlet point, will have little capacity for reducing the amount of water draining towards it from upland areas, and will receive greater volumes of water during flooding seasons than other communities located higher in the same watershed. Development of channelized waterways drainage tiles, and impervious surfaces also leads to increased quantities and speed of the water headed downstream. While a community located near the top of its watershed may not experience flooding, managing water will have a greater effect on neighboring communities downstream. This map highlights your community within its surrounding watersheds. Where does it look like your community is located within the watersheds? Is water flowing to your community or away from it? Is flooding an issue, and where? How big is the watershed above your town? What conditions might increase or reduce flooding? Are there conditions or practices happening in your community that could be creating risk for communities downstream from you? Volga is located at the bottom of one large watershed that collects water from the Mink and Brush Creeks, which feed into the Volga River that flows towards the city of Volga. This creates higher risks for flooding since the location is at a point where the most water will accumulate. The elevation and flow map displays differences in elevation. A combination of contour lines and the color gradient depicted in the legend show which areas are highest and which are lowest in the landscape. Flood risk is correlated to low-lying land. The map shows your community's 100 and 500-year flood risk as defined by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Flood Map Service Center. Because of its location in a low-lying valley along the Volga River, Volga is immersed in the natural environment, but is at a higher risk of flooding. Most of the town is within the floodplain, showcasing the vulnerability of its development within the river bluffs. Volga's identity is inseparable from its location within the Driftless Area. Being situated in a deep river valley means the town is immersed in a beautiful natural environment, but it also places much of the community within a high-risk floodplain. The devastating 1999 flood was the turning point that forced a rethink of how the town uses its land, leading to the creation of the green spaces that now define the local landscape. Moving forward, the best strategy for Volga is to continue embracing this green approach. By maintaining a healthy tree canopy and vegetation, the town can better manage its high water table and protect roads from groundwater damage. By treating these low-lying areas as public assets rather than development sites, Volga can honor its history while building a much more resilient future. Ultimately, by working with the river rather than against it, this community can ensure its long-term stability and continue to thrive in this unique landscape.